Okay, here we go. Sweet. All right, we'll just give everyone a minute to get here. Love it when a live show plan comes together. Hi, everyone that's just starting to tune in. I'm going to leave this coming soon, starting soon screen up for just a minute. Hey, Danielle. Campers in the house. We're not in summer camp right now. What is this? I'm giving this a quick old share to the Jesse James Secret Stash group. And you know what? I bet it's a good idea to share this over to the summer camp group too. Yay. Who else is tuning in, guys? Why don't you write a little comment there, say hello, let us know who you are. I have got the amazing Jem Hawkes waiting in the wings here. Okay, great. Hi, Kay. Hey, Shirley Ann. Oopsies.
Okay, here's contact information for at TTS. Leanne at TTS.
Oh my gosh, sorry. My computer is like feeling as bonkers as I am right now. Okay. Let's take this back to the Zoom with Jem. Thank heavens, here we are. I'm going to stop the share. It's just like all this crazy madness. Hey, Jem, how's it going?
Absolutely wonderful, thank you. Unfortunately, we don't have the beautiful weather that you seem to be having, Sarah, today. It's very, very damp and rainy and ooky here today in the UK. But, you know, we've had a little bit of summer, so hopefully it will come back for us real soon. How are you all doing?
I am doing just fine. And how is everyone that's in the chat doing? Man, oh, we've got Donna Tomberlin is there. Cynthia, yes, this is live. We have done some finagling over summer camp. JJB Summer Camp is about learning new things, growing, making friends. And I mean, we talk about learning new jewelry making techniques, but I don't really think we talked about learning new ways to use technology. And that was one that me and Jem figured out finally how we can do these shows with Jem live. So yes, Jem is live in the flesh. She's here, everyone. Wire wrapping Wonder Woman. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I wish my thighs were like Gal Gadot's thighs because she is a beautiful lady.
Oh my gosh, that's so wonderful. Yeah, you're right. But you know what? I feel like Wonder Woman isn't just a physical being, it's a state of mind. It is a soul.
Love that. I love that so much. But it's a state of mind. Wonder Woman is a state of mind. That is going to be my mantra for the remainder of this week. Thank you for that. I'm taking that and stealing it. It's mine now.
Please take that one and put it in your back pocket. So Jem is here today. Jem is a wire wrapping wonder. I say that and I mean it with with every ounce of truth. Everything that you make, everything that comes from your fingers to your tools to your wire is absolutely exceptional. And then you turn out this project. Jem sends me a picture of this project yesterday saying, what do you think about this? Do you think that the Jesse James Beads crew would like to make something like this? And how amazing these beautiful little components that you've created and then tied them all together in a very mixed media style necklace. Jem, tell us about it.
Do you know, I had a box which was the Rainforest from the Color Trends mix, which is this one. I've written things on it, I'm afraid now, to remind me what it is we're doing and what we need, but it's this mix. And it was so inspirational. The charm that's in it I'm not sure if it's a monstera. I'm not entirely sure. Cheese plant, I would call it. But it was such an inspirational thing that it led me to just want to make something which was really rainforest vibesy. And the colors were so perfect with this bronze color hammered chain that I had to add that in as well. And then I got excited and just used some cord.
I love it. And I love the mixed metals. I like the silver with the bronze. I like the greens. It all has such a fun, organic, and very edgy look to it. And I love these leaves. Are we about to make these?
We absolutely are. We'll make each of the 3 leaf components on the bottom, and I will talk you through the whole project. I'm sure that you're all very familiar with the things that I will show you, so I will run through them. But we will absolutely learn these 3 different little charms or pendants. You can size them up, size them down, make them into earrings, make them your own, add beads. You know, there's so much that you can do.
I love it. Well, amazing. So without further ado, should we just turn the camera down to the mat and get going with these things? I see that there's a lot of components to twist up.
There are indeed. What I would like to do, if it's okay with you, is just talk to you a little bit about each of the things that's going on here. So we're going to learn these 3. This is the most complex of the 3, and these 2 are super easy. Very, very similar in their basics, but quite a different look to them. And what I did was I used half the chain to create one side. Now, I struggle with asymmetry. I kind of like things to be fairly symmetrical. So for me, it was a bit of an adventure to go for an asymmetrical look. So I've only used half the chain, but of course you could use as much or as little as you wanted. I found some green cord in my stash, and all I've done is, we would say plaited it in the UK, but braiding, I guess it would also be known as. And then I've just knotted some of those beautiful beads onto the bottom and added an extender with an S-clasp and just a crimp cover to cover a knot, nothing complicated. So it's all things that I'm sure that you can do, but I'll show you how I added on the beginning of the thread or the cord to the top here. It's just 3 lark's head knots, but I will show you that a little bit later. So what I would like to do is scooch this up to the top corner. See if I can get that lined up so that you can just have a quick look if you need to at those 3 parts. Okay, so the wire that we're going to work with to begin with is around about 12 inches of your 18 gauge silver. Now, underneath my whiteboard, I have my black brick background, Sarah. I'm going to leave it up to you. If you want me to switch to the black background for this silver wire, just let me know, and I will sweep this whiteboard out of the way. What do you think?
I am getting a little bit of a blurry right now.
Let's try that without the white just for a second.
Sure.
And see if that's an improvement.
I think it might be, actually. Yes.
That's coming to focus a little bit better, hasn't it?
It's making the wire pop, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're happy, then we will move on. And we're going to learn the more complicated of the 3 to begin with. And then we will show you how to make these pieces, because these are what you can make with offcuts of your metal. And you know me, I like to reduce, reuse, recycle. So without further ado, what we're going to do, this is 12 inches of your 18 gauge. This is silver plated round German style wire, and I'm just going to give that a quick warm between thumb and forefinger, just because all wire will work better if you do that to it. So around about 2 inches from the top, I'm going to start by putting a right angled bend in and just create a little wrapped loop at the top. If you've not done this before, it's really a key technique to get to grips with in wire working. What I'm going to do is make this as a charm. So we're going to make a sealed loop, but part the way through the process, I will just show you something that's really kind of handy to know. So I'm going to roll my round nose pliers around so that I can get the wire to come out of the way slightly. I'm just going to do a half circle to begin with. I move the pliers out of the way for a second. And then what I will do is I will take the tail of the wire around and cross it at the neck of that piece. So you've just got a circle at the top of your wire with a good 1.75 inches remaining off the side. Now, if you were adding this to a piece that you wouldn't later be able to thread onto, what you can do is just open your loop up slightly, and I'll show you with this scrap of wire, and just pass your threading material into that loop before you complete the process. So I'm going to remove that now, but if you wanted to create a wrapped loop that was sealed onto something, that's how you would do it. So I'm going to close that loop back up, and I'm going to take that short tail of wire all the way around a good couple of times. I like to see at least 3 turns because I think it looks neat and professional and finished. You're just going to trim away that excess at the end, which has gone on the floor today. So I will ensure to police my wire before I let the dogs back in the room, because we don't want any accidents there. What I'm doing here is I'm just chasing that wire around to get the end nice and smooth. So I know that that will not catch on clothing now. It's nice and smooth. So just beneath those coils that we've made, I'm going to pop my bent chain nose pliers in, and you can do this with regular chain nose pliers if you want. I just happen to like these. It enables me to show you a little bit more closely. So what I'm going to do is push that wire out to one side. It's around about a 45-degree angle from the straight line that we're working with. And now I'm going to use my thumb to generate the size and the shape of the leaf form. Now, because we pre-warmed that wire to begin with, it really does want to do what you're asking it to do. Now, if you make this tiny, it's tricky to fill. If you make it huge, it takes a long time to fill. So this is just over ½ inch from those wrapped loops to the point I'm about to make at the bottom. That's about ½ inch. What that means is I'll be able to show you the technique, but it won't take us 6.5 months to infill with the wire. So again, with my bent chain nose pliers, you can use your chain nose pliers. I'm going to hold that firmly at the base and draw the wire back up. Now you can make your leaf asymmetric so that you have a little curvature coming out to one side, or you can make that completely symmetrical. It's entirely up to you. What we don't want to do is close that point up too tightly at the bottom. So I'm going to hold that firmly and then just put my finger again to get that shape back into position. Now, what we're going to do before we close this up at the top is start adding our infill. Now, you can, when you get a little bit more used to wire weaving, wire work, you can start adding beads into a design like this, or you can just add them on the front, which is one of the last things we do with this piece. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch that design like so. You could very, very gently hammer this at this stage, or you can use any flat facing pliers. So these have got 2 flat surfaces, and I'm just going to give that a squeeze all the way up. And what I'm doing here is I'm trying to put a little bit of memory into the wire so that it will retain this shape neatly. Now I have got a short length of 24 gauge, which is equivalent to 0.5mm wire. And I've got around about, let's have a look at this. This is probably about 24 inches, a good 2 foot of wire. Now this is too much for the project that I'm looking at, but if you want to size it up slightly so that your leaf is maybe 1 inch long instead of ½ inch, you will need to think about having a slightly longer length of wire. So I'm going to work with an overly long length of wire so that you can see it is possible to work with this and not get lost. So I've passed my finer gauge wire over the top of the whole design, and I'm getting towards the bottom point of that leaf. If I just move my hands out the way that side, you can see where we're at. What I want to do is, it's kind of like casting on in knitting. You need to find an anchor point. By the way, I don't knit. My Nana tried to show me when I was little, and I could, she had to cast on and cast off for me. I could do the middle bit, and that was it. What I'm going to do is take that little tail of wire at the end, and that's just under ½ inch, and I'm going to wrap it 3 times around one of those sides just to get a really good grip on the wire. And if you joined me in summer camp on Monday, this is something that we practiced together at the very beginning of our swirly ice cream design. So what we need to do is make sure that we're circling at least 3 times around one of those sides and getting that tidy. If you can hold this closer to your face, it's much easier to make that neat. I'm making it look harder than it is because it's far away from my face. So we've got those 3 wraps on the one side. And what I want to do is bring this down towards the point, but not completely into the point of our design. The next thing that I need to do is to shift the design in my hands. What we have here at the top is an access point. So the wire that sits on the left-hand side crosses over the top and is the long tail, okay? The wire that's on the right-hand side curves around and leads up to that little neck that we've created with a tiny bail on top, if you like. What I need to do is draw the upper side just slightly apart. You can see there's now a little gap in there. And all we're going to do is weave backwards and forwards. So I'm going to hold this upside down and I'm going to draw the tail of the finer gauge wire so that it comes down inside that leaf design. If I hold my thumb over it, we started on this side, we've come over the top and down into the middle. What I'm going to do now is draw that so it's reasonably straight across the tip of the leaf. It's come underneath on this side, and I'm going to wrap it 3 times just here. So it's just on the one side. If I take the top over and slide it down that aperture that we just opened up, and that's why we just gently open this up. If I turn that on its side, you can see it's not a large gap. And because we put a memory into the wire, the shape is holding. So I'm going to wrap that 3 times around the one side. So that's the 3rd time, drawing that finer gauge wire down. And what I will do at this stage is just very, very gently scooch those 3 coils of wire neatly together. I'm going to turn the design around now because it's easier for me to show you by doing this. Draw the wire down the center. So it's come again down the center, underneath the opposite side. And I'm going to switch my grip. I'm now going to wrap from underneath 3 times around this side. So it's exactly the same process on either side. You're always alternating from the upper to the lower. And if I just caught my microphone, I'm very sorry. It's the long tail of the wire that's catching up on there. So I flip the design over again. And what I'd like to do, if possible, is just keep those coils reasonably even. So in the early stages of the design, you can just tighten things up slightly and move things around a bit. So I think what I need to do is just give that a bit of a squeeze to bring everything together. And then it's a case of just filling in the center of that leaf. So I'm going to move on quite quickly, but if you have any questions about what we're doing so far, please do ask them. And perhaps Sarah can translate for me because I can't see a computer screen right now. So we're wrapping 3 times on the one side. We can switch the design around if it's easier for you. And then if I hold it over on this side, 3 times around the other, 1 and 2, and then a 3rd time. You can do this with a slightly lighter gauge wire. This is probably the heavier wire that I tend to use to infill. It builds up an infill quicker than your 26 gauge, but it is a slightly tougher work. And you might end up with what we like to call the wire worker's knot, which is where you get a little dent in your nail. And for that, I can only apologize. I have seen wire workers get an acrylic nail just on their thumb to prevent this from happening. I just tend to keep my thumbnails reasonably trimmed. So again, we're crossing over to the opposite side. My finer gauge wire is always wrapping down into the center of the leaf before it crosses to the opposite side, and I'm wrapping 3 times on either side. And the reason I'm going relatively quickly and frankly a little bit untidily, you can obviously go a little bit slower and make this much neater, and you'll end up with one that's a little bit more like that. But what I want to do is show you the next stage of this design process. So 3 times on the one side, 3 times on the other side, back and forth. Are there any questions at the moment that we need to address, or is everybody quite happy with what we're doing? So it's round wire. Yep.
It seems like so far so good. Everyone is happy with this. It doesn't seem like there's any questions. If you guys have any questions, feel free to shout. Jem can't see them, but I am here to I'm here to be your go-between. I'm the messenger.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I would say definitely my translator.
I'll be the translator. And shall I ask the questions in a British accent?
That would be absolutely hilarious. I can do Mary Poppins if you like.
In that case, Cynthia McConkley asks, has anyone ever tried to soak the lower, thicker gauge wire in warm water to warm it up for the ease of bending?
Do you know what? I've never even thought about using water. Because I suffer from hot hand syndrome, or pastry ruiner's hand, as my mother likes to refer to it. It's not really an issue for me. I have, with heavier gauges of raw copper wire, played a flame over a coil of wire before using it, and that tends to soften it quite nicely. But with your raw copper, it will also kind of patina a little bit, so you end up with a color plate on it that not everybody particularly wants. So when you get up towards the top, and as I say, you can make a much neater job, like this one. You can see how beautiful those stripes are. This one's slightly less beautiful because I don't want you to sit and watch the same thing 99 times. I'm going to finish with 3 wraps on this side. And I'm going to cut away as close to the inside of the design as possible. So I've just flipped this over to the back. I'm going to lift the tail of wire, take my cutters to the tail of just the finer gauge wire, look twice, cut once. And we started with 2 feet of wire. We've got maybe 9 inches left. So that tells you how hungry for wire this kind of design is. Of course, as usual, we would want to make sure that that tail is tucked away neatly so that it won't come back to haunt you later. Again, please do a slightly neater job than this. What I'm going to do is just rewarm this wire up at the top. You can see that one of my loops has come a bit loose. So what I would do if I was making this to keep, making it to sell, I would just wind it back a little bit, take those last 3 loops off, tidy it up, and then tighten it into place. I'm just going to very gently warm this top of the long tail of wire that's coming away. And I want to wrap it around the neck just 1 time. So that's once across the back, and then until it sticks out forwards from the front of the design. And what we want to do here is, again, apply a further little bit of warmth and then squash that down over the face of the design. Now for this one, which is slightly larger, you can see there's a gentle curve in the vein of the leaf. And if you want to do that, utilize your fingers and thumbs rather than tooling, because you'll get a much more natural look. Once you've decided that this is how you want your design to look, I'm just going to flip this over so we're looking at the back. Now, the reason we left a gap down at the base here, I'm going to trim this to probably around, I have to think in inches now instead of centimeters. So about 1/4 inch, like so. Another piece of wire on the floor. And what I want to do here is grip a hold. If I turn that sideways, I want to grip a hold of that tail and draw it around the back of the design. So I'm doing this on its side to show you the process. Draw the wire around the back of the design, but don't crunch it into position just yet. I'm going to show you what that looks like. This is the underside of our leaf. That's the upper side. This is the underside. So now we can see how much wire has been taken up. We want to trim that now really, really close. So I'm just going to pop my pliers into position, my cutters rather. Support that tiny bit so it doesn't go off into infinity and beyond. Now we need to just tuck this very tiny end section into the gap at the back here. So very gentle movements, small movements, get that tucked away inside the design, and then you've got no sticky outy ends. I can run my finger around on that and there's no danger to skin, hair or clothing. So that was the first piece, neat piece done without a camera in the way. Not quite as neat piece, but the process is exactly the same. So this piece is approximately 1/2 inch from the top of the leaf to the tip of the leaf, excluding the bail and neck section. Now on here, what I've done is I've added beads before I do my wrapped loop. The reason I haven't shown you with those beads in position is because I didn't want them getting in the way of my wire whilst I was demonstrating. But I have a scrap of wire just here. Let me just grab that away from the necklace and I'll show you how you can make this design next. That's the underside. Flip that over. That's the upper side. So I'm going to show you this process and I'll show you how to add the beads on, which you absolutely can do for this design. When you're working in your own space and your own desk, then it doesn't matter if you send the odd pile of beads flying. There's no naughty words that one would need to edit out if that occurred in your own home. So I'm going to show you this one now, and it's very, very similar process to begin with. I've
Jem,
got
real quick before you begin
Uh-huh.
on this, Donna has another question. She was asking, is it on the first leaf that you created, is it a figure 8? Are you doing a figure 8 shape of
Yes,
sorts?
it
Yes.
is. It comes with many, many names. It's known as a basket weave, a figure of 8 weave, a back and forth weave.
Oh,
And I've just chosen to use 3 wraps on either side. Now you can absolutely have 7 wraps or 1 wrap or 2 wraps or 5 wraps. It's entirely up to you. But the key to getting a neat finish is to count. So 3 on one side equals 3 on the other side. The only time that we vary the number in a figure of 8 weave is when we're taking weaving round a corner. And I don't think, I'm just looking desperately. Oh no, I do have a piece. Hang tight. Hold tight. It's a learning moment. So with the sun, moon and stars technique, which I teach, on this section, this is figure of 8 weave. It's using a much finer gauge wire, but this one has maybe 3 around the outside, and then from the top third to the bottom third, there's 2 on the inside and 3 on the outside, because you're graduating around a curve. So there are times with your figure of 8 weave that you would want to graduate it, but with the leaf design, you kind of need to keep that even. So yeah, there's a 3rd or 4th or 5th name for it as well, and I can't remember what any of them are, but yeah, we call it a figure of 8 weave. So when you're looking at it end on, you can see it goes over and then around like so all the way. So yeah, good question. Thank you for that.
thank you, Donna.
So this is the one we're going to learn next, and I have some beads just here. Every single one in this collection is a stunner. I particularly love these ones. Are they clay? I want to know. That's my question for you, Sarah.
Let's see them. That bead right there, it looks to be clay. I have to go get mine from downstairs to check it.
Let me know another day when you've actually slept for the first time in about a week. Let me know, because they are beautiful. They feel beautiful, and they're such a secure bead to work with. So I'm going to grab just a couple of random beads from the collection that are remaining. I think we'll go for a slightly blue tone and like so down size wise. So the technique is startlingly similar to begin with. And one of the things I love about this technique is every time you make it, it can be different. And then when you do make a big feature necklace, then every single component is different, and that's amazing. So what I'm going to do, I've got a length of maybe 10 inches of your 18 gauge silver plated round wire. This is German style, so reasonably bouncy, little bit of warmth. I'm going to start halfway along this design because I'm going to show you a cheeky variation as we're here.
Ooh.
And I'm going to start by putting a slightly sideways bend, and we're going to begin making the leaf shape. So again, using the warmth of my hands and the curvature of my fingers, this can be whatever size you want using the wire that you have available. So I'll make quite a large one, I think. Come down to the point. Now the point should be a continuation of the invisible line that comes from here. So I'm going to turn a point back upwards and create my basic leaf shape. If you want it to be one-sided, I'll show you a cool little hint and tip to make it one-sided. Just put your pliers in and then pop a bend up here so that when you use your fingers or your thumb, whatever you've got available, could even use a marker pen if you wanted to, you get an asymmetric look really quickly and simply. It's not difficult. We've got a good tail of wire up at the top. So what I want to do is hold my pliers opposite direction to how we're normally holding like so, because we want to make bends go the same direction all the time. But I'm going to hold them slightly differently now, crossways, because I want to take that long tail around the neck of that design. And I'm going to use my pliers just to help me close that up till the wire comes back to the front. And then I'm going to push that down across the front of the design. And again, if you want to put a little bit of a curve on it, you can. It kind of looks like a coffee bean now, which is good because I do love coffee. There we go. So that's another variation that you can work with. You've got that little vein going down the front. Technique for sealing it on the back is very, very similar. We're going to trim maybe 1/4 of an inch past the end just so that we can see how much we need to take back. So I'll begin by bending that backwards and up. I'll show you that sideways before we start taking it over the rear of the design. And what I need to do is line the tiny stub of wire at the back. I want to line that up with whatever line I've created with the vein of the leaf on the front. So I'm just going to pull that down into position slowly. You can push that with your hand if you're strong enough. And you can see we've got a really long tail here. So I'm going to again measure twice, cut once, take off the correct piece of wire and no other pieces of wire. Get that out the way. And then make sure that that sits on the tip of the leaf before closing that down neatly. So if I flip that design over, you can see we've made a leaf. It doesn't have any of the weaving. They're much, much quicker to make, but they are fantastic for using up little bits of offcut wire. So I'm now going to see what beads will fit on my 18 gauge. And I think I'm going to graduate from the largest, nearest leaf to a middle-sized piece to this beautiful saucer, which is absolutely gorgeous. I would buy a packet of 100 of those and just make a bracelet. So we're loading on beads before we do a little wrap loop at the top. I'm sorry, Sarah, I spoke over you.
Oh no, I was just saying I love those saucer beads too so much.
They are really cool, as are, and I'm going to grab one because I love this bead box so much. These little square flying saucers, they're amazing. I adore them. The texture and detail in them is fabulous. So once we get up to where we've loaded whatever number of beads we want to load, what I would always say is no matter what beads you're using when you're working with wire, you absolutely positively have to be respectful of your beads. So I always allow a little bit of space between where my pliers are and where the beads are sitting. So again, I'm going to turn this sideways, put a forwards bend, and then you would follow through with that wrapped loop, which we've already seen today. So I can show you very, very quickly. I'm supporting those beads, making a round shape. That's going to come up and disrupt the camera, so sorry. Take the tail over the end, pop it down, and then you can straighten that up so that the loop sits centrally, like so, before you take the tail around and just wrap that up much more neatly than I'm giving it time to do now, because what I don't want to do is show you the same thing 50,000 times. So just tightening up slightly before trimming away the excess on the back side of the design and just scooching those coils until they sit neatly. So that's our project number 2, like so. So we're already building up a lovely layered nature. Now, the third leaf was born of necessity. This one just here is exactly the same as this, but I ran out of wire at the end. There simply wasn't enough wire to create that little crunch over the end. So as long as you give that a squeeze to put some memory into your wire, they're pretty stable, especially when you start layering them up. So what I would do, rather than this whole process again, is I'm just going to cut this section away at the base. So let's imagine that you've made this section and you wanted to crimp it down over the bottom of your design. Oh no, you didn't have enough wire. So let's make the best of the work we've done so far. And all we're going to do is put a small coil on the end of your wire. Add some strength into the piece with any flat facing pliers. You could add a little bit more curvature to it if you wanted to. You could coil that round more. Limitless possibilities on that one. So let me just show you the piece that I made beforehand. We've basically made this one and this one and this one. This is just a jump ring attached to the gorgeous, I want to say, I can't remember, is it a rubber plant or a banana tree or something?
The cheese plant.
Cheese plant. I knew it was food plant. I just couldn't remember what food it was.
The Swiss cheese plant.
Swiss cheese plant. That makes so much more sense.
Technical
So
terms all day.
Say again, sorry?
I said nothing but technical terms here all day.
Oh, 100%. It was a food plant, a planty foodie plant. Where are we? Ooh, pop that back in the corner like so. I'm going to put our components out of the way for a moment and bring in some more 18 gauge round silver plated copper German style wire. Such a mouthful. Now for this, you will need a reasonably sized round form. It's really handy to have a ring mandrel if you can, but if you don't, really kind of any round form will do. So I'm just going to borrow one of my favorite hammers that I've had since the dawn of time. So all I'm doing here is creating a round form to begin with, a reasonably oversized round form, like so. And then I need to put my hammer back out of the way, because if I drop that on the floor, my toes will not understand. They will be sad. So what I'm going to do is draw an upright on one point of the circle we've just made. And that's where we'll be adding our beads later on if we need to. So if I just open that out slightly, it's an oversized jump ring at this stage. Let's just pop on 2 of those pieces that we've made. Now, if this is the front of your design, you need to hold that backwards for a second so that when it spins around and comes to the bottom, it's the correct way up. So let's have a look. This is the upside that we're looking at. So if I flip that over, load it on and draw it around, it suddenly turns up the correct way. What we're going to do then is, you've guessed it, another wrapped loop. So I'm just going to draw that tail around, bring that neatly to the front, and then pop a small coil on. So if I hold that forwards and just pop a little coil. So small movements with coils are your best bet. Moving that around. I could have left an extra tail of wire if I wanted to, make that a little bit more reminiscent of the piece that we looked at to begin with. And then all we would do is add on some beads and then create a wrapped loop to add on to the last link of the chain that we're looking at. So I've got a section of chain just here. As I said, I cut mine in half so that I had one to show you beforehand and one to work with on the live show. If I draw these pieces out of the way, let's pop a couple of beads on. And again, I would urge caution when working with wire and beads. You don't want to wreck your beads. I'm choosing a random selection because every single bead in this box is glorious. So let's pop one of those funky squares in, and then finishing off with a clay, presumably possibly beautiful bead like so. So you've added all the components on that you want to add at the base. We've done a little mini wrapped loop to secure everything into place. We've got a small drop. So what we would need to do then is pop our pliers in sideways, forwards bend, and then create an oversized wrapped loop. You can do this with the base of your round nose pliers, or you can use your multi-step bail makers. Just got the camera with a tail of wire, terribly sorry. What you do need to do is make that quite large. Now I'm showing you here, if you keep moving those pliers, you can create a form, a circular-ish form that is larger than the base of your pliers. And it's just by playing with the wire slightly so that it sits how you think that will look neatly. What I'm going to do is trim away this tail here because otherwise it will hit the camera. So you do only need about 1 inch on the end there. I'm going to open that out slightly so you can see there's a little gap there now, and just pop this on the lowest loop of your chain. Squash that flat, take the tail around the end, and then finish off with a wrapped loop. Honestly, once you've learnt the wrapped loop, you're halfway there. Team that with the figure of 8 weave that we looked at the beginning of tonight's live, and you're almost 3/4 of the way there. Wirework is great because you can make almost anything. What I'm doing here is trying to keep the piece in the same orientation. Normally what one would do is spin that so that it's in the easiest aspect for you to work. So I'm just taking that tail all the way around to the back, and that's how you've added on to the base of your chain section. That's upside down. Well, there we go. That's much better. Are we all happy so far? Are there any questions that anybody would like to ask about this project or anything else that we're working on at the moment, or any of the products, because they're divine?
I think we're so far so good here, but yeah, just inviting our crowd to, if you guys have any questions for Jem about anything that she's doing here, feel free just to shout.
Do please get involved, and you can always tag me later if something comes to mind. So I'm going to pop this over to one side for a second and just leave the top loop in shot. and I'll show you where we've got to on the Rainforest Vibes necklace. So we've got all our component parts. We've made an oversized circle. We've got a drop. I added many more beads on the one for this evening because I got excited. And then we've got a length of chain. Now, for the back of the neck, what I used was just some cord that I had literally on a cupboard that I put up about 10 years ago and instantly forgot about and have never used since. So it's very old cord. But all I've done is braiding. All I've done is plaiting. You could, of course, use slightly more intricate macrame designs if you prefer. But I will show you how to add on one of those cords. And if you need any help with braiding, do let me know. I'm fairly confident that we can all do a 3-strand plait. But if you do need help, please let me know. So we've got the top of the chain in our piece. I have got 3 lengths of cord. Each length of cord is 48 inches, so 4 feet long. It's a lot of cord because plaiting or braiding will eat the length out of the cord that you're working with. I folded it in half. It's a little bit tatty on this one, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I folded it in half and I'm going to find that halfway point further down. If it doesn't want to get too knotted, that would be handy. And this is the loop that's halfway along. So what I'm going to do is pass that inside the chain, and if it's easier, you can grab it with pliers or tweezers or whatever. And what we're going to do is just open that up and pass the rest of the cord through the loop that we've just created. So if I hold that down and bring that cord all the way through, and then just pull that tight. It's a standard lark's head knot, I believe it's known as. I'm not a knotter. I'm more of a wire whacker. So I would just, I'm sorry, I've had some different terminology used on me to describe me over the years, and that was one of the funnier ones. So with braiding, it's simply a case of moving one strand into the center. Do I need to do braiding? I'm sure that we can plait, can we? Because I don't want to get you bored, really. I'll just add these other 2 lengths on real quick, and then we can have a look at whether that's something that we need to think about. So again, I'm just passing the loop through the whole of the center of the chain, drawing the tail end through and pulling it all the way along. So you've got 2 on there at the moment. I'll find the center of my 3rd one. Oh, that's got a knot in it. That's not very nice, is it? Let me just unknot. It's a very old thread, so it's a little bit resistant to doing new and exciting things. But it was the best color for the project. So there we go. I found the halfway point. I'm putting the halfway point through the last link on that chain. And then I'm going to draw those 2 tails up and inside that loop I've made. Try not to involve the previous ones. Pull that up and through, and then pull that tight. So you've got 3 lots of 2 strands. Now there are all kinds of funky macrame things you can do here. You can just treat it as if you were square knotting on a core, which would be over, under, over, and so on and so forth. But that will eat even more cord than your standard plaiting. And also it helps if you have a clipboard just to keep that nice and tight. So I'm just going to do 1 standard square knot. So my left hand cord is going underneath the middle, over the right. Normally I would have a pin board, and then it pops all the way back around and down and underneath. And I think I've absolutely massacred that because it's not being held still for me. I think we'll just do plaiting. It's very difficult to do macrame without a pin board. So if you've never plaited before, you've got 3 cords. Take your right hand cord, bop it in the middle, pinch at the top. Take your left hand cord, bop it in the middle, pinch at the top. Ad infinitum, just keep going, keep going. If you keep your tension the same all the way along, it will look much nicer and feel much nicer. But if you do it over tight, you might find that you come up slightly short. So left over right, right over left, into the middle, over and over again. And you can see, let me just pop that down on the board, make sure that the camera focuses. You can see that that's not terribly neat because I've not tied it at the end. So let's bring the demonstration piece in. This is what would go up and around the back of the neck. And then all I've done is I've knotted those 6 cords into a great big knot. Popped a bead on 5 of those ends. And then on the 6th end, which has decided to get in a bit of a jumble because I've been throwing this around the board, I've added a bead, and then I've knotted that into the end of an extender chain, which I've just realized I don't have a spare one of. All I've done is an overhand knot twice, a tiny bit of clear nail varnish, and then used a 5mm crimp cover over the top. The extender chain was simply to join up to the remainder of the necklace. And you can either use a regular oversized bolt ring, you can use an S clasp like this one. I liked the mixed metals, so we've now got bronze, gold, and silver, which all work beautifully with the green tones of the Rainforest kit. But you can use whatever clasp you fancy. At a point in time, I will show you how to make your own J hook using wire. So you could use something like that. I mean, that's super oversized, and you would need to tighten that up slightly for it to work effectively over and over again. I also wanted to just show you a sneaky usage. When you buy your chain, it's cut for you, and you'll receive a cut link, which you may or may not want to use in your chain. If you don't want to use it in your chain, you can wire it onto the outside of a spiral like I have here. So this isn't part of tonight's demonstration, but it's just for inspiration for you to show you that things that some people might discard, might put into the, oh, I can't use that pot. Have a think, because I'm sure there's always a way that you can use these things. And I will make another one of these, and I'll probably have those as some interesting earrings. You've just made a spiral, and the wire goes up through the tiny gap. I've added on one of those absolutely stunning, is it a hexagon? Yeah, it's a hexagon. And then a wrapped loop at the top. So very, very simple make, but rather than wasting those pieces, I would always try and find a use for them.
I love it.
So are we all good? Did everybody enjoy that? Are there any further questions?
I have got one actually real quick. Jem, show us the end of your braid, of your plait that you said.
Mhm.
So Cynthia was saying, I think that silver silk would be easier as a connection here, and silk
Mhm.
would look really cool as the connection to go connect the chain and string it around the back. But when you use multiple cord, maybe you use a 1mm leather, or maybe some 0.5mm leather, or the 0.5mm hemp that's been left over in our summer camp kits. Then you can add these really cool beaded fringes, which gives it a whole different look.
Absolutely. Now, I haven't worked with the silk as yet. I will definitely be taking a closer look at it. But yeah, I mean, the cord section, this is basically what I had in an extensive stash that has been collecting for a little while. So I used what was available to me. You can absolutely change all of it up. You can use whatever color wire you want. I think that the beads with the rainforest vibes are absolutely perfect. And I've got to be honest, this chain is everything. It's so beautiful. I love mixed metals, but I also really, really love hammering, because to make this would take me ages and ages and ages.
Jem, the techniques that you showed us today are really, really cool. I am with Melody here about talking about the circular components. And she was saying, Melody Capone, hey friend. She was saying that the tip that you gave about adding components to the circle just changed her life, which is massive. I love it when we can have an aha moment on the education space here. So that's really cool. And I personally love that circular component as well. Very cool.
That makes me so happy. Just to, even if there's just the one thing, even if it's just, oh, well, I can make this more stable by turning the end over and securing the leaf. Even if that's all you take away from a tutorial, if it helps you in any way, then I'm really, really happy. But I'm delighted. I mean, this little doohickey was an invention solely for this project. I can't think of any time I've ever used that before. So from me to you.
I love it. Your leaves are so fluid, and your doohickey, as you said, I haven't heard the word doohickey in such a long time. Please, thank you so much for that my grandma from Western Pennsylvania says words like doohickey and I don't know, a bunch of others that I'd have to pull out from my hat someplace at some other time. But anyhow, your doohickey that you made here, this round with the swirly swirl, it's so fluid. Every single component that you've made has got such flow.
Oh, thank you so much. And the key really is keep your wire warm. I never would have considered putting it in water because you need to be able to grip it securely. And honestly, handling your wire, running it maybe 3, maybe 4 times, thumb to forefinger, just across like so. This changes everything. It just warms it just enough so that it becomes fluid. Too much more than that and you start to get it to be brittle, but then it just does so many wonderful things for you. You can make anything out of wire. It's an absolute dream.
Jem, you are living proof of that. All the things that you have made with the wire. Every time Jem is here on the Jessie James Beads page every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So set your calendars for that. We will keep that schedule through the month of August. And then if we feel like maybe we need to shift the time up a little bit earlier, we will in September. So if 4 p.m. is not a good time for you guys watching, please do let us know. But anyhow, you can expect to see Jem here with these amazing tips and tricks for how to use wire and how to make wire do absolutely anything, because I know for all of us that are learning, that's something that we are still looking to achieve, is what you said there.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all your positivity and these wonderful, wonderful things to work with. I love this box so much. It's an absolute stunner. I'm going to be wearing this, you know.
It's beautiful. The colors are so wonderful. And Jem is referring to the box of beads from the Color Trends collection. This is a new bead mix collection from Jessie James Beads. Right now you can find that at the shop, www.jessiejamesbeads.com. And we are having a little bit of a treasure hunt right now. You need to seek a little bit on the website, seek and find. And I can drop some tips and tricks for some clues on where to find this treasure. But for now, I am going to let Jem go. I've got to run. Thank you so much, Jem, for everything today. This was an absolute treat to have you. And I'm so glad we got to do this live.
Yay! I hope everything was all right live-wise. I hope the camera was good for you. It's been my pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much. And I look forward to catching up with you again very soon.
All right, Jem. We'll see you next time. See you on the summer camp.
Bye.
Bye.